Are you gonna talk about the one guy who did speedruns of Gregg the Egg? Yes!
Gregg the Egg is a 2007 Metroidvania by Nobody, an alias for indie developer Jan Willem Nijman, later of Vlambeer fame. In the game, you play as the titular Gregg, who hatches from an egg, and also maybe is an egg? It's not clear. Gregg has to navigate a strange monochromic world, exploring, gaining strength, and gathering abilities to evolve and finally reach his destiny. We begin the game falling from the sky in an egg and shatter on the ground, thrown over a patch of spikes and onto this sign that instructs us how to move with the arrow keys. This is all we can do at this point, as we cannot yet jump, so we walk to the right and find another sign instructing us to beware the boogeyman. The boogeyman? Who's that? Oh. Jan Willem himself describes this as the first puzzle in the game, and also the hardest challenge in the whole thing. I wouldn't go that far, not by a long shot, but it certainly is a difficulty spike right out of the gate. The trick, of course, is to wait for the boogeyman to approach the ledge, then just kind of flop over him and run like hell. It's also possible, due to the questionable slope physics, to vault over him here on the ramp, though I doubt that's intentional. After escaping the boogeyman, we find a jump upgrade and begin to explore the world. Gregg the Egg uses variable jumping, meaning that you can release up in the air and not jump quite as high. This isn't explained except in the readme, but becomes very important later on. This sign says, "Don't be curious." Well, I don't know what I was expecting. After getting back to the death pit and this time heeding its warnings, we find a save point, and further down the hallway, a locked pit and this map. The map in Gregg the Egg is actually really cool. Behind the scenes, it's a BMP file that's dynamically regenerated whenever you bring up the map and records every single block and element you've ever been in contact with. The main issue with it is that Gregg himself is nowhere to be found on it, and you kinda just have to estimate your location from context clues. Anyway, getting the map upgrade also unlocks that pit. Here we get a second bit of health, which we are gonna need because we are about to encounter the first of a couple pretty difficult sections involving moving platforms. This one is conceptually simple: ride the platform, jump the spikes, etc. The problem is that if you haven't mastered the whole variable jumping thing yet, this part is quite difficult to get right. It's actually easier to ignore the moving platform altogether and just jump from these blocks, but that isn't a walk in the park either, due to the platform trying to shove us onto the spikes. Finally, we reach the end and gain the ability to jump through these platforms.
It's kind of wild how jumping through platforms is an ability in this game.
Huh, this place looks familiar. Oh god! This allows us to explore up this chute, which we didn't have access to before, and here have to wait until a moving platform appears. Oh, that's cool. I wonder what that is. One recurring issue in Gregg the Egg is that there are several points where you have to await a platform that you don't really know is coming, so sometimes you'll just wait at the edge of a spike pit for ages until you realize that no one's coming to save you. Further on down, we find a random pool of water, which has some pretty interesting buoyancy physics. I wonder if that'll come back later. Soon, we find another save point, and this mysterious sign. I wonder what that's about.
Owned. Wow, that's that gamer humor.
If we ignore that, we soon come to a conveyor belt that Jan Willem didn't want to create an animation for, so it's just an arrow. The physics on this are pretty interesting, where after stepping onto it, you move to the side even while in the air. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it's not too difficult afterwards with a bit of trial and error. As long as you have variable jumping down, that is. At the end of this gauntlet, we are rewarded with a jump upgrade, giving us a significant height boost. Here, we are also introduced to green spikes, which kill you instantly, unlike red spikes, which only take 1 heart off your health bar. These will become annoying later. Exploring further in this area, we find something called the Chamber of Death, which also for some reason costs money to enter. Since we're too poor to die, we continue exploring and eventually come across this tall shaft filled with spikes. After waiting a while, an elevator comes to pick us up, and we have to avoid the spikes while going upwards, like that one Wally level. Go watch my Wally videos, by the way, they're pretty good. Anyway, at the top, we are introduced to another new element, these orbs. If we jump on them, they catapult us high into the air. These make you move pretty quickly, so you'll end up being mashed into the spikes more often than not here until you learn the route. After making it to the top of this section, we find a button that activates all the phantom platforms, which are those outlines that we've seen around the map but I haven't ever mentioned before. This, combined with our improved jump height, unlocks a huge number of new areas back in the parts of the map we've seen before, but first we have to get back down. This is actually a really difficult part until you realize that by tapping up in the air, you can control your vertical momentum, as with variable jumping. This is actually mentioned in the README as well, but nobody reads those. I do wish that the newly activated phantom platforms were visually distinct from regular walls, as this would help point us to places that we haven't been yet, but we just kinda gotta remember where we couldn't go before. One thing I appreciate about the map is that it actually stays updated even when you die, so if you fall into a concealed bed of spikes, they'll show up on the map to remind you later. It's not as nice as if you could see the spikes and tell it was certain death before jumping, but after navigating another series of jumps, we end up back at the place we started. Hello, old friend. This series of newly reified phantom platforms leads us to another health upgrade, which is always nice. Now that the phantom platforms are real and we have the upgraded jump height, you'd think that the old Don't Be Curious pit would be navigable to us, but actually no. We can now enter the pit without dying and collect a ground pound upgrade here, but the pit is just a little too deep to jump out of, so we have to die to reset. Above this moving platform pit, we can now reach the cool gizmo, which has a sign that explains it's a teleporter and that we can press down to use it. It doesn't work. We actually have to get an upgrade to use this, but the sign is woefully unhelpful on this point, so I just kinda thought it was broken. If we continue up this ladder, we reach what I actually believe to be the most difficult section of the game. There are a bunch of moving platforms in a spike maze, all going back and forth at different speeds, and all trying to push us into insta-death spikes below. This part took me ages to complete initially, and I kept giving up to explore other parts of the map, but eventually I had to complete this section, and finally I was rewarded with the ability to use launchers by pressing the down key, which raises a question. What are launchers? They are, as it turns out, these flat pink things on the ground. When we use them, they catapult us high into the air, allowing us to access new areas in the, 2 places where they are. Luckily, there's one just down here, though I actually want to backtrack to the save point first, because that part was really annoying. Gregg the Egg could definitely use a few more of these save points scattered around, as you often have to travel quite a ways to save, or after death, but that's a common problem from games of this era, so you get used to it. Back at the launcher, if we propel ourselves all the way to the right, we find a new area to explore. There's a lake and a large ladder of blocks that leads to nowhere. And in case you haven't guessed it yet, this is where the pretty cool buoyancy water physics really come into play. We have to jump off the top of this tower, then dive into the water in order to get deep enough to get past these spikes. Now, these circular boosts actually propel us downwards when we're underwater, so we must keep getting deeper without touching the spikes. If we hit a floor fast enough, we stick to it and can walk off the edge to begin floating again. It's a cool physics change-up that does take a bit of time to get used to, but it's a fun time. At least it would be if we didn't have to trek back from the save point every single attempt, but, you know. After completing the underwater section, we find a single gold coin. What are we supposed to buy with this? A gumball?
Wow, that's that gamer humor.
Fast forwarding the long walk back to the death room, we can now finally enter it, for a reasonable fee. As we reach the middle of the room, deathly saw blades start raining from the ceiling, multiplying as they go. The corners are adorned with spikes so that hiding in them is impossible, and before long, we succumb to the namesake of the room. I'm gonna level with you here. This is the place where I got stuck. I don't even think I made it this far as a kid, but when I was replaying it for the first time for this video, I guess I just kinda took the room at face value and assumed it was like a minigame that always killed you. I exhaustively searched every corner of the rest of the map, finding more health upgrades and collectibles, but eventually I broke down and used the incredible GMD compiler to crack the game's editable GM6 file and figure out where I was supposed to go next. The GMD compiler is a fantastic tool that I use all the time in videos just to get clean rips of game assets to use as background music, sprites to use in thumbnails, etc. It's technically against the terms and conditions of GameMaker though, so if Mark Overmars is watching this right now, no I didn't, actually I was joking. What I found was that, to progress, I actually needed to survive in the death room until 6 or more saw blades existed, at which point the green spikes guarding this upgrade would be destroyed. It's actually quite possible I accomplished this before, but didn't notice because there's no strong visual feedback besides the spikes quietly disappearing. After finally getting the upgrade, it turns out to be a heavy trophy. Huh, I wonder where they've talked about heaviness before. Back at the original water pond, we find that we can now swim by tapping the up and down arrows. Well, the up arrow anyway. Going down the chute, we navigate a maze of spikes and moving platforms. The design through this section is enjoyable, except for this one part where there's a moving platform that sometimes gets stuck in the wall, and I can't figure out how to get past it besides taking damage trying to slide through the gap. After finishing the underwater spike maze, we get to the wings upgrade, which is essentially a small double jump. This allows us to access several more areas, but most notably, it finally allows us to return to the Curiosity Pit and collect the ground pound upgrade. This allows us to break the cracked floors that we've often seen around the map, but also allows us to finally enact the ultimate revenge against our very first antagonist, the Boogeyman. Killing him gives us the monster skin upgrade and makes us immune to green spikes. This makes it really fun to wander all the places we used to get insta-killed and just kinda walk around. Eventually, on one of these long stretches of green spikes, we come across the final upgrade, the teleporter key. At last, we can return to the cool teleportation machine and, as the sign says, press down to use it. We appear in a new area, flanked by 2 more teleporters. Fair warning here, you have a 50-50 shot of dying just from choosing the wrong one.
Gamer humor.
If we choose the right one though, which is the left one, we navigate one last simple jumping puzzle and end up at one final line of signs. Gregg, you have faced many dangers. You have survived it all. Evolution has chosen you. As we approach a corridor, Gregg suddenly lays an egg, and our POV switches to the egg, falling down, 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 and finally landing in the very same place where we began our journey, and the game cuts to credits. Gregg the Egg is a very enjoyable Metroidvania experience, and despite a few questionable design decisions, I'd say it holds up remarkably well. Its graphics are about as minimal as it's possible to be, but still charming, mostly readable, and unique. The music in the game, despite being a 43-second long loop that wears thin rather quickly, is strangely catchy and compelling, and I'll often find myself booting up the game just to listen to it. Perhaps the most impressive thing about the game is the size of its world, which, while not comparable to larger multi-room Metroidvanias, nevertheless feels vast in scale, and is a genuinely impressive feat when you consider that Jan Willem stated that he basically put it together as he went along without much pre-planning.
Also, what's kind of important about this game is that I had an absolute blast making it, just clicking bits of level together and never really reiterating or going back. It's just like, let's just keep adding more and see where it ends up. And I think that's still a really good way to make games like this.
We haven't quite talked about all there is to discover yet, though, as you'll notice that the built-in percentage meter in the corner is quite far from 100. The reason for this is primarily the gems. As is detailed in the README, there are 14 gems in the game, and while some of them can be reached through normal means, some of them require a bit more searching. You see, several walls throughout Gregg the Egg are fake, allowing us to face through them, usually to find a gem hidden behind them. This is not as unfair as it first sounds though, because the fake walls do not show up on the map, so if you see a suspicious gap in an otherwise mapped area, that's probably what it is. Collecting all these gems, and all the health upgrades, gets us to 100%. Except we're still not done, because in a gesture for the truly hardcore gamers, in the options menu we can enable hardcore mode, which removes all health upgrades, ensuring we only ever have one heart, and also disables the map entirely. I'm way too soft for this, but it's a cool optional added challenge, and also gives Gregg a kick-ass bandana. In 2021, Jan Willem Nijman streamed several of his old games to Twitch, including Gregg the Egg, and he confirmed something that I formulated as a theory while playing the game this latest time. That being that Gregg the Egg took heavy inspiration from Matty Thorson's Stickman escape games.
This game, like, all of this stuff was just heavily inspired by the Matty Thorson's games, like Jumper, and that was like the good stuff back then. There's much better game maker exploration games out there anyway, like even Super Stickman Escape.
The smoking gun for this fact is that it's a Metroidvania, but unlike most games in that genre, which transition between screens, both Gregg and the Stickman Escape games occur in one giant room where you slowly gain abilities without ever traversing screen boundaries. Also in this stream, Jan Willem mentioned that there was a dedicated player back in the day who even speedran the game, and I think you can guess what's coming next. The Gregg the Egg speedrun by Televids was completed in May of 2007, and comes from an era of YouTube where you literally couldn't upload videos over 10 minutes, and so is split into 2 parts, and was also filmed by pointing the camera at a computer screen, so the quality is a little bit lacking. The run itself, though, is very tight, and has a final time of 17:30 for a 100% run, which is extra impressive considering that Televids said in his description that he was drunk during the run. There are several small tricks used to save time and effort throughout the run, such as using the slope physics to skip over the boogeyman to avoid having to wait several seconds for him right at the start, boosting off this wall spike rather than waiting for one of the moving platforms, and this amazing moment where he jumps over the green spikes in the death room just to wait out the entire challenge. An important question is raised by this run though, namely, should runs be measured in real time or using the in-game timer? This is actually a more strategically important question than it first appears. You see, not only does the in-game timer save at save points, essentially acting as if you did the entire run without dying, but also if Gregg idles long enough, a small hourglass icon appears above his head and the timer pauses, meaning that you could theoretically pause the timer for long stretches, like waiting for and riding on moving platforms. Given this, though, we run into another issue with the 2007 run. Clearly going off of the in-game timer, Televid's died in his speedrun and just kinda cut around the death a couple times, meaning that we're not sure of the real-time estimate. We could try and guess this by assuming it would have taken him the same amount of time as it did to get there the first time, which we do have on film, but it's still an unknown that puts the true time of the run into jeopardy. Because of this, I would probably have separate columns on the Gregg the Egg speedrunning board if I was the moderator, just so that both kinds of time could be measured. What? Why are you all looking at me like that? Oh, so just because I became the Sakeloose world record holder that one time on a technicality, now I'm supposed to become the world record holder for every single game I cover and maintain all of the speedrunning boards on speedrun.com? Let's pretend that you said yes. I'm not gonna lie, this run was pretty brutal for me. Speedrunning requires a lot of time and repetition to get right, and video deadlines are kind of antithetical to that. Initially, I was doing real-time attempts, and I actually got pretty good at the first section of the run. I eventually got it so that I could complete all the way to the first encounter with the teleporter with a high degree of consistency and to a high standard, but then I hit a snag. That snag being the moving platform section immediately followed by the underwater section with no nearby save in between. This gauntlet is an absolute run killer. The moving platform section is kind of doable if you get the timing of the platforms down consistently, but the underwater section has RNG elements with how the boosters throw you, and this one section is very, very difficult to pass without taking damage on this corner spike, so if you get damaged at all in the platform section, that's the run right there. The thing that finally made me give up on real time, though, was the second underwater section's stuck platform glitch. You'll recall this from the main description of the game, but if you're doing an any percent run where you're not going out of your way to get more health, this is a solid brick wall in the way of completing the game, especially since I believe based on RNG that the platform can end up stuck in such a way that it's just straight up impossible to get by. When I hit this issue, I just gave up. Real time was dead. However, I had already set up the leaderboards at this point by submitting Televid's 100% run, and that was essentially a multi-segment run where he reloads on death and only cares about the in-game timer, so I figured maybe I could give something like that a go, but with any percent. As I started grinding for that attempt, I figured out some really useful techniques. First of all, the moving platform timing. You don't actually have to hit perfect execution because there are certain bottlenecks throughout the run where you have to wait for a moving platform to come, so all you have to do is get there within a platform cycle and you won't lose any overall time. The longest one of these, I believe, is the vertical elevator platform cycle, which alone takes over 20 seconds. Back when I was attempting real time, I would usually hit this elevator at around 3:20 on the in-game timer, but with better execution from reloading saves in my in-game timer attempts, I was able to hit a cycle early, a little before 3 minutes. This logic also followed forward to the next major bottleneck on the run, the moving platforms section. First of all, this part took me forever. I kept a real-time timer running just for my own interest while I was doing the in-game attempts, and doing that segment took me nearly a full half an hour. I didn't go for flawless execution either. This was just me trying to survive to the next save point, but I did manage to squeeze out one more little bit of time. For this section, I had saved at 4:44, and my best cycle on the long-moving platform that begins the difficult section was just before the 5:40 cycle, even on my very best real-time runs. This is a long platform. The cycle is around 17 seconds, so nearly as consequential as the elevator. When I first got here in my attempt, it was a 5:06, and I had just missed the cycle. I could settle for a 5:20 when it looped back around. Hell, that would still be a cycle improvement over my previous best, but it wasn't good enough. I knew I could be better, so I started running attempts from the save. Luckily, there's a shorter cycle platform before the long one, so I didn't need perfect execution out of the save point just once I'd mounted the platform here. I figured out exactly how early I could jump from the platform. I started using variable jumping to its utmost extent, making sure I didn't waste any time on overly high jumps, and I did it. I was able to just make the 5:05 mount cycle for this platform. and then I had to do it over and over again for the next half an hour while I tried to survive the moving platforms and underwater section. My execution got sloppier after I conquered this part, maybe because I was getting tired, but frankly probably because I hadn't gotten here very much before, so I was unpracticed at these sections. I pulled off the green spike jump to sit out the death room and was able to pause the timer for most of that time. If you really cared, you could time out the perfect moment to unpause here to get the perfect platform cycles for the rest of the game, but I didn't have time to figure all that out. Very weirdly, when I finally did do the second underwater section, this time the moving platform wasn't stuck at all. I have no idea what causes it to become stuck or not, possibly RNG, whatever, I didn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Finally, I got the wings, the ground pound, and the tough skin, made my way back to the spike pit, got the teleportation ability, and finished out with an in-game timer of 12:56 and a real time of just over an hour at 59:04. So yes, I am the world record holder in Gregg the Egg now. Any percent. Televid still has the 100% record and he's really good, so yeah, I'm not touching that one. However, if you are interested in speedrunning Gregg the Egg, I not only endorse it, but I have a nugget of wisdom that I actually discovered after finishing my run that should make it pretty easy to beat. You see, one trick that Televid's used that I've neglected to mention so far is that after getting the ground pound ability, you can actually glitch through the one-way platforms. He didn't use this very much on his run, but when I was watching my run back, I realized something. After I got the monster skin upgrade, I had to go all the way around to the green spike pit to fetch the teleport upgrade. This took me about 30 seconds. I realized that by using the ground pound glitch on the one-way platform right at the start, you could skip the vast majority of that trek, grab the teleporter upgrade, and then get back to the top, saving probably a half a minute. This is incredibly easy to do, carries no risk, and is a free 30-second time save, which I'll remind you is better than any of the long moving platform cycles. Do with that knowledge what you will. Okay guys, it brings me no joy to add more to an already too long section of an already too long video, but I've run into a bit of a problem. After completing the speedrun and being on top of the world, script supervisor RekNepZ was playing a version of the game he downloaded and kept running into trouble beating the first underwater section. I tried to give him advice on this, but after investigation, it turns out that he'd somehow gotten his hands on an in-progress build of Gregg the Egg, where there are several small changes. The water physics are different, and the ground pound upgrade appears not to exist. But that's not what I need to talk about. You see, when he was trying to figure out the water section, I pointed him to my speedrun on speedrun.com to see how to do it properly, and he said, "I don't see the game on this site." Sometime, in the couple days between me writing the last section and this, Speedrun had taken Gregg the Egg off the site. No warning, no reason given, just gone. I filed a support ticket about this, but as of the last edit of this video, I've had no response. All this to say that if you're looking to speedrun Gregg the Egg and you can't find it on speedrun.com, that's why. I'll be working behind the scenes to get it reinstated, and hey, you can use that time to hone your skills so you can blow away my record when it gets back. Anyway, back to the main video. Okay, with that bit done, let's wrap this one up. In 2010, 3 years after the release of Gregg the Egg, Jan Willem Nijman, along with Rami Ismail, would found the independent game studio Vlambeer, which would go on to develop such massive successes as Super Crate Box, Ridiculous Fishing, and Nuclear Throne. In 2020, Vlambeer would amicably disband, and just earlier this year, in April 2024, Jan Willem purchased Rami's 50% in the company in order to continue development under the studio name alone. It seems like he's got several cool projects currently in the works, and I'll link to that info in the description. Gregg the Egg, while not as polished as his later works, is still fun and has a lot of great design behind it. I had a blast playing it, and you should play it too. Maybe even speedrun it. Hell, speedrun Sake Loose 2 while you're at it. I got nothing else going on. If you want to play Gregg the Egg, you can find a version compatible with modern systems on archive.org. Link is in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you liked this video and you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for notifications. I've got a ton of other cool videos in the works, and you won't want to miss any of them, so please just give me a subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends if you want to. Alright, this is Snail Man signing off. This is my new thing. I talk over the credits now. Goodbye.
wow, that's that gamer.